Silver is my favorite metal from the monetary metals. It's the underdog metal. It's got the most potential. I mean, to see, lead, zinc, copper, cobalt, you name it. I mean, anything you name across the board is at a higher price than the 1980 high, except for the silver market.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for September 22nd through September 29th, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, the famous 1-ounce gold Krugerrand are just $60 over spot. Next, MS62 $10 gold Liberty are only $90 over melt per coin. Finally, 100-ounce silver Johnson Matthey bars are just $2.20 over spot per ounce. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend David Morgan, the silver guru from the Morgan Report. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, Elijah, thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you today, and exciting times as we see silver pushing $45 an ounce. We haven't seen this since 2011, and I think 44 has been a pretty critical level since that's the second high it made after it almost touched 50 in 2011. So what is your take on where we are right now for silver?
Well, it's pretty obvious. It's been up and away, and then, of course, how high is high. There's been a lot of demand on the silver side, meaning, photovoltaics and all the industrial uses. Some more flows into the SLV. Saudi Arabia made almost 1 million share purchase recently. And the path of least resistance is obviously up, and we're obviously in a new bull market. That doesn't mean that we won't get some corrections along the way, which really are needed. We don't want this to be a runaway market. But as I was getting my first cup of coffee this morning, I was thinking about the $50 level, and we have that huge cup and handle that, I pointed out, many others have. And we're not there yet. I do believe we'll get there. I've been saying I doubt we'd see it this year, although we certainly could. But my thought was this, the 50 level is such a huge barrier for the silver market. I mean, in 1980, as I put out in my weekly perspective, it only lasted a matter of minutes. Some of the floor traders that are my age or older that are still around said it was a little longer than that, maybe an hour. And then, of course, in 2011, it actually didn't really print the 50 on the continuous futures on the spot market. It would have been in the futures. And there it lasted a while, a few days. But we've never been in a 50 handle where we had a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. So the point I'm making, and this is maybe ideology, but it's almost as if we get above 50, then we're winning. And if it stays below 50, the bankers are winning. That may sound a bit trite, but, there's been a lot of consternation around the manipulation. I don't want to go there. I addressed it in great detail in writing on Twitter, and I've done a couple of videos about it. You can look it up or come to my support, and I'll send you the link. But back to your question, it's going to be very, very interesting to me. Now, Michael Oliver, I have tons of respect for. He thinks we're going to, blow through it. I won't discount that much, especially coming from him and really, truly knowing what momentum is. But for my take, it's again psychological, and I do think it will stall out there. But I'm not trying to make right him wrong. I don't really know. It's that kind of a gut feeling. But then I do agree with him. I think once we consolidate, maybe it blows off 50-ish, gets to 51 and stays there a couple of days, and then it closes at 48 and 47 and whatever. Anyway, I think the time it does go through, whether it's the next time or thereafter, that's a whole new arena. And I do think that the algorithms are going to pick up on the momentum, and the sky's the limit, because there's never been that territory in U.S. dollars. If you go into, the Indian rupee, or you go into Canadian dollars or Australian dollars, or all these, you're seeing new highs. These are all-time new, just like we see in gold in U.S. terms. But the U.S. market is one of the biggest markets, and certainly between London and the U.S., you have the most, let's say, visibility and perhaps opportunities to, at times, manage the price.
One of the arguments I would suspect technical analysts, I'm not, a professional technical analyst myself, but I would suspect one of the arguments for why silver wouldn't really pause at $50 is not many people, as you mentioned, bought silver at $50, right? That might be more of a psychological barrier than actually people wanting to sell and get out where they got in, because it didn't stay, you said minutes, maybe an hour or so in 1980, and then a couple days in 2011, but the price didn't stay up. So not many people were trading at that point. What is your perspective on that?
Well, it's absolutely imperative. And, I listened to your interview with Bubba Horowitz, and, to make a really strong market, you need to go to different levels, get some corrections and build a base and build off a new base and a new base. And that's what's been happening. That's why I've been so pleased this time about how gold and silver are performing, because not only are they in a verified bull market, but that they're stair-stepping up more or less, which means there's a lot of support as the market moves back and forth. And in a bull market, most stock investors know, and I'm sure people that follow you know this as well, and that's to buy the pullback. And so when you're in a bull market and you get to 45 and it pulls back to 42, you can buy that pullback. Does it mean buy everything? No, but you can. So you're pretty much assured. So it's a very strong market technically because of those facts. It's not a runaway market where you just go straight up. That's what you don't want. So once we get trading above 50, it'll be very interesting to see, how it builds from there. And, how far it goes is, there's lots of projections out there. I mean, I was probably one of the first, if not the first, to say $100 silver back in 2003. And I based that, actually, I thought it was conservative because of the spike high of 50 in 1980. And if you just took the CPI and adjusted it for inflation based on the government's stats, which are a far cry from the real stats from Shadow Stats, John Williams' website, 100 was conservative. But we're not there yet. We're not at 50 yet. But I do think we're going to get there. And as you said, it could just go right through it. As Michael Oliver said, again, I don't really disagree. I just think that the powers that be want that psychology. They want silver investors to give up. They want the stackers to be discouraged. And a really good way to do that is to see something negative around that price point. So it's going to be fun. I'm just going to, enjoy the ride. I'm pretty certain we will get through it and move forward.
It's an exciting time, and it doesn't seem like I can't think of any other market that really parallels this, where you have, a double top, 30 years, 31 years apart, and now we're finally getting back to it 14 years later. I mean, this is insane that, it kind of highlights also that silver is so undervalued even now, given that it was higher than this price in 1980. I mean, what other market comes even close to that? It seems like everything is higher than in 1980.
Well said. I will add, and I've said this before, and you can agree or disagree, it's opinion, but silver was absolutely, in my studied view, the most emotional financial market that exists. Now it's second place, because Bitcoin and maybe some of the other cryptos, but particularly Bitcoin, has more emotional attachment to it than silver. And I'm very happy about that, because really, to be a good trader or investor, you want to try to keep the emotions at bay and just, study the fundamentals, use technicals as appropriate, and have a plan and stick to it. I mean, I've always taught that silver is my favorite metal from the monetary metals. It's the underdog metal. It's got the most potential, and yet it's a very frustrating investment at times due to what you outlined. I mean, to see lead, zinc, copper, cobalt, you name it. I mean, anything you name across the board is at a higher price than the 1980 high. except for the silver market, which is really still opportunity. And it's going to be very, very interesting as the year plays out. I think we've got a few years left, and we could have more as far as, where these metals are going to go. And really, you got to look at the flip side of the coin, which means the banking system. What are the banking elites going to do to mitigate this, let's say, run out of paper assets and into hard assets, and to set up a new system, which obviously China's been doing theirs for years, that's pervasive throughout the Western world, primarily something like a CBDC or something along those lines. And so there's going to be, I think, this kind of a battle that takes place, or we're actually witnessing now, where it's just starting to see new troops form up on the side of hard assets that maybe came from the stock market, the real estate market, the bond market, or whatever.
Certainly. I mean, I'm reminded I mentioned this before on another episode, but I was doing some research on what happened in Germany after the Weimar hyperinflation. It's crazy to think that everyone experienced hyperinflation, their currency went to zero, and then what came up next was just about a couple of years later, the government said, the Reichsbank, the central bank of Germany, essentially promised that they can't finance the government deficit, right? They can't just print money to pay for government spending. And they also had a 40% backing, technically, of gold. But this eventually, went to about 2% gold backing, and the public couldn't redeem their currency for gold. And eventually the currency again became worthless. So it's just crazy that after people experienced the worst inflation you could possibly experience, they fell for another fiat currency that became worthless as well. And it's like really shocking to think about that, and then think about today, how we might see hyperinflation. We might see very high inflation, as we already have, but will the public become awake, right? That's our job, to make sure that the public says no to another fiat currency, another central bank digital currency. Your take on that? I mean, do you think the public will be duped again? Or do you think there's hope of the public actually realizing, no, we have to go back to something sound?
Well, obviously your viewers, the listeners, will know. And, if there's other venues like yours out there, in fact, it's very interesting, this conversation, because I just had almost this exact conversation with a client just previous to this. I think I align with what Bill Holter and the late, great Jim Sinclair said, and I think that the bankers will try to institute a more or less cashless system unbacked, and then it will fail, just as you outlined in the Weimar Republic. And then they will come back with round two and say, okay, we're going to put gold into the mix. I doubt they'll put silver as a monetary metal. So I think that the psychology probably isn't big enough power in it to overcome, the first trial balloon of here's the new system, but it will fail and then go forward. So that's my take presently. I mean, if I see something new or new proposal or whatever, I could change my mind. But as I see it now, I think you outlined it perfectly. And it's sad because, these lessons get taught in an absolute manner, I'll say, every few hundred years, not every, 40 or 50, where the currency gets a new color or new size or new denomination or whatever it happens in the currency system. These are seminal events that take place where really the lesson should be learned from that point to your children's children's children. I mean, it should go for generations. You don't trust, unbacked, made up digital digits to trade for your labor. But life goes on, and certainly that's the direction we're still going, as we both know. The trend is for more control, not less control. So we'll see.
We'll definitely see. And I mean, we are seeing some positive developments of, some of the world waking up to the fact that paper currencies don't ultimately have value. Central banks are hoarding gold, and we also see institutions starting to buy more and more. And at Miles Franklin, there have been more and more wealthy individuals purchasing specifically gold and silver eagles. I wanted to get your perspective on that. We're seeing premiums increase on especially gold eagles at the moment across the industry. Do you think this is a sign that some of the smart money is on the retail side is moving into the market?
Absolutely. And I've seen it a couple times already. I can't cite the exact dates, but we had like a banking scare not that long ago. And, I've got the consultation tag up on my website, and it kind of ebbs and flows. And I probably had not done a consultation for a year. And I got 3 in 1 month, and they were all people of high net worth that had never bought gold before. They wanted to not make a rookie mistake, asked, how do I do it? Where do I go? Should I store it? And all those kind of questions. And I think that's being revisited, except this time, instead of, whatever small percentage of the population acted last time, it's going to be a much bigger percentage. And the real estate market's not in good shape with the interest rates where they are, and with the commercial real estate being as in the sad a condition as it is after the illness, and a lot of people started working from home. These office buildings are not full anymore, and their shopping malls are not the place to be on the weekend anymore. So you're seeing a big shift in the commercial real estate market. And on the residential side, people just don't have the cash flow or income stream to be able to afford the average price house in many cases in many states. So, I don't want to overblow the doom side. I mean, these are the ebbs and flows of economies throughout recorded history. I mean, things get undervalued, fair valued, and overvalued again and again and again. And we go from a trusted monetary system to a questionable monetary system to a distrusted monetary system, and usually back to a trusted monetary system. So these aren't new things. The Ecclesiastes, nothing new under the sun applies here.
Now, in your weekly perspective, your last one just a few days ago, you were talking about demand for silver eagles. And I wanted to get your perspective on that, because it seems like silver eagles, more than any other retail product, can really increase in premium and be in demand. People really want the American product. And I know back in 2023, I think the retail premium went as high as like $18 over spot per ounce, which is crazy. And the buyback premium also was like above $10 per ounce at one point. So your perspective on demand for these certain retail products, and how much can the mint actually produce? It seems like there's been issues over the last couple of years for producing and making enough silver eagles to meet demand.
Well, there's little doubt that the silver eagle is by far the most prestigious and coveted government minted coin. And I was thinking about it without doing any math, and God, I wonder if there's 1 billion eagles minted. And I did the math, and I forget the number. I did it recently. It was like 683,000, so 0.68 billion. But more than $500 million. And that article was about going from the strategic stockpile to start the Eagle program, and then where it led. And as far as not minting enough, that's certainly a fact. I want to take both sides, to be fair. I mean, the mint has so many presses, so many employees, and they can only put out, so many eagles per minute, per week, per month, the flow rate. And if the demand gets above the flow rate, they got to buy, hire more people and make another press or 2 or 3 or whatever. And so I won't, discount that toward them a little bit. But once we really started getting these huge demands, like 40 million a year and that type of range, 45 million a year, and they were able to get close to, and they minted that many. They should be able to at least do that, if not more, from that point forward, and they haven't. And so that leaves you scratching your head of, what's really going on. I won't put on a foil hat and say anything about that, but certainly the mandate's to meet demand. And in some cases, I will make the excuse for them. Well, maybe they didn't have the manpower or the equipment to produce the demand, but once they caught up or should have caught up, why can't they continue? And again, that's an open question. As far as why, I think one of the most recognizable, also some people are worried about, legal tender act, where these are legal tender in the United States. So the ability to confiscate is almost zero. I don't take that take, but it doesn't mean it's not a safe way to go. Certainly, I bought a fair share of eagles along the lines, and then there are collectors, and type set is when you have one eagle of every year ever minted. And if you do a type set, and I did two of them, I did one for each of my daughters. There are years that are such low mintage, you actually do have to pay a premium regardless of current market conditions to be able to get those to complete a set. So I guess we went a little deep on that, but love the eagle. Wish there was a better flow rate where we didn't have to see these huge premiums, but the market's the market. And if you want a certain product and it's in short supply and the people that own it don't want to sell it, the price will be bid higher. I was telling, my people that follow my work to wait. If you have to buy silver, but buy maples, buy, the Austrian mint or the Australian mint to get a government coin, and then swap back or whatever. And some people did, some people didn't. It's a free market, make up your own mind. But the premiums do eventually fall off, which they have, and now they're coming back.
What do you anticipate going forward here? Because on the retail side, it's pretty busy, but it's more heavily from more wealthy individuals. So your perspective on going forward here, typically you'd see a huge retail inflow when we're more on the tail end of the bull market. So if we're kind of heading towards that kind of third stage of the bull market, what do you anticipate happening to retail supply? When we've seen huge demands in the past, everything can really just be wiped out, especially the gold and silver eagles. But your perspective on that, what kind of demand do you anticipate? And do you anticipate kind of shortages developing on the retail side?
Eventually, yes. I think right now, everyone that's in what I'll call early, anyone that's bought silver under 30 or maybe even 35 is now holding at a higher price. They might just have made back the premium. I don't know. It depends on case by case. But they're reluctant. It's like, they've waited so long and so hard in so many cases that they're reluctant to buy anything above and beyond what they already hold. But what will happen is, as more institutional buyers come in, as I outlined with, Saudi Arabia, more institutional investors moving to the SLV, the PSLV, and the iShares, and many other things that are available, it will keep pushing the price higher. And then when that panic mode starts in, where people start to realize that, like they did in Weimar Republic, that, I don't know if I can trust a dollar anymore. Every time I go to the grocery store, the same bag of groceries is 10% higher. The government's telling me inflation is down to 2.5%. Nonsense. I've got to do something. And silver will still be affordable for most people at that point. So I think you will see a run to silver. I've often said, in years gone by, that you'll see more people buy silver above $30 an ounce than below $30 an ounce. Where it says, oh, come on, you're a kook. But no, what happens when fear enters the market and you're afraid that your paycheck isn't going to buy enough for the month, or that your savings is going to has half the value that it is now within another year or two, you're motivated. And that motivation will move people into these markets. And there aren't a lot of places you can go outside of the metals. You can, a hard commodity, lumber, oil would be fine. You can't store it very well, but, a good oil stock would probably help you out. But money's a funny thing, because there's an insatiable demand. There's almost an infinite demand for money when people realize the difference between currency and money. So I think it's going to take some time for the retail side to get hot again, Elijah. It's a different market this time. As you said, it's wealthy investors that maybe have made a great deal of money in real estate and stock market, or both. And all of a sudden they're kind of waking up to, those two markets. And where else do I go? If you look at Mike Maloney, And when he started goldsilver.com, I mean, he went on the stage and basically talked to nothing but real estate investors. And his timing was absolutely perfect because real estate at that moment in time was really peaking. And so he was suggesting to these people that they sell off some of their gains in the real estate side and put it in the metals. And I mean, he helped a great deal of people not only maintain their wealth, but build it from that point forward. So we're seeing that again this time, rather than be motivated from a higher price, perhaps. It's more, as I said earlier, it's more motivation by this economy doesn't really look good. What can I do about it?
I'm reminded of this video I saw actually just yesterday it was a news report from, I think it was 1980, maybe 1979, during that big run up in silver. And it was reporting on how a gas station was selling gas for 10 cents a gallon. And the caveat was you have to pay in silver coins. And I thought that was really interesting because today, a silver dime will pretty much get you a gallon of gas. And silver, as you mentioned, people might rush to it if they realize that, hey, my dollars aren't preserving their purchasing power, and maybe silver will. And that's what has proven to be true, is silver has preserved purchasing power over time. So your perspective on that, like one of the ways to think about this is, yes, silver can increase in value as well as preserve your purchasing power. But first and foremost, we're seeing a depreciation of the dollar. And if you just, take those two data points, right? I mean, a dime still purchases what it did in 1980.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I actually drove by through a couple gas stations like that. But, I think I won't say errors, but one of the statements I know I've made was that, gold will preserve your wealth and silver could, I never said could make you wealthy. And right now, gold has actually done a better job at wealth preservation than silver, although you outlined it has preserved your wealth, and that's a fact. I think later on in the last stage of this major bull market, silver will surpass gold, meaning the gold-silver ratio will come back down below 80, 70, 60, 40. I think 40 is conservative. So on that basis, we could just do kind of round the numbers. It would outperform gold on about a 2-to-1 basis from here. Not from where it's been in the past. But regardless, it did its main job, and that's to maintain your wealth. The second possibility is that it gets overbought and it gets overvalued, and it gets to a point where it's not, it has surpassed gold as far as percentage gains are concerned. And if that's the case, or when that's the case, that's when you really want to take advantage of that fact and move into another asset class or lighten up or whatever. So that's kind of how I see it. I'm not looking for, silver to go to par with gold or whatever, but, I'm open-minded. I mean, the future's unknown, and the demand for silver is pretty insatiable in a high-tech society, especially with the AI and these data farms going in and all that's happening for the near future and future 5 years from now. So, silver is indispensable, essential, critical, and non-negotiable. There are products that only silver will perform as required for the end user.
Well, David, we really always appreciate your time with us. If our viewers are interested in learning more, they can go to themorganreport.com, also SilverGuru22 on X. Did you want to share with the viewers a bit about this and any last thoughts you had?
No, I think that covers it. I just got off a Zoom call with a couple participants in the documentary. It looks like we're going to shoot for the 22nd of October to do the launch of the Silver Sunrise. The movie's complete. Now it's a matter of just getting some, email lists and blasting it out to everybody and then putting it on either YouTube or I might put it on the cloud at Amazon. We rent space from them. But anyway, it will be up probably by the end of next month.
Fantastic. Well, we'll have to watch that and have you back on to give us the rundown. And thank you so much for your time today. We'll put a link to the Silver Sunrise website also in the description of this video so people will know where to watch that. Thank you so much, David, and God bless.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for September 22nd through September 29th, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, the famous 1-ounce gold Krugerrand are just $60 over spot. Next, MS62 $10 Gold Liberty are only $90 over melt per coin. Finally, 100-ounce silver Johnson Matthey bars are just $2.20 over spot per ounce. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.